Hey everybody, so I want to talk about just some of the back and forth that we get sucked into seemingly on an increasing basis over the last 10 years. And I had some thoughts on it that I want to share. Mainly how the smartphones are contributing to this. I think a lot of it has to do with how smartphones have changed us socially. So I don't know if anybody has really noticed, and if you're significantly young, probably not at all. But for those of you who are my age, you can sort of identify with this. I think we spend a lot more of our time in an individual existence. So whereas before the smartphones, we used the phones to connect and meet up. We were always interacting and meeting in person with people. And the phone has become a substitute for interpersonal connection, right? And so, coincidentally, as a result, our existence becomes far more individualized, far more egocentric, right? So, we don't really have much of that consensus kind of mindset. Like we used to, right? So we used to just all sit around and talk, right? We don't really do that. We sit around and type. We don't sit around and talk. And the typing is, it's slow. It's in there twiddling your thumbs away on a little virtual keypad. It's not fast. And it's amazing because we have all of this video conference technology. We ought to at least be, I don't know, connecting on Zoom and talking, but we've replaced interpersonal connections with devices, and so as a result, our existence becomes very, very self-centric. Even if you're not at all privy to having narcissistic tendencies, so you could be the nicest person in the world. But we're all in our own individual bubbles, especially with COVID now. It seems to be exacerbating the issue. So you can be the sweetest person, nicest person in the world. Your view of the world is still going to be very self-centric, whether you like it or not, because you're getting your information through your phone. And there's multiple levels of reality, and I've talked about this in the past. The structure of reality is such that there's individual reality, and on top of that is consensus reality, you and your ride or die crew, right? And then there's cultural reality, which is the grand scheme of things, like Americans, Mexicans, Asians, that kind of stuff. And then global, which is us, humanity, right? So like they talk about climate change, for example. That's a global reality. COVID is a global reality, and the things in the global reality can filter down all the way to the individual. Right, but the individual reality stuff doesn't necessarily translate up to the global level, and so as a result, we're losing out on consensus reality because we no longer have our little running crews like we used to. We don't have our bowling teams, so that kind of sort of chops the legs out from under cultural and global realities, and it makes it difficult for us to talk. So I want to circle back to what I had said in the beginning. We're all becoming hyper individualized, and because we are hyper individualized, it is becoming exceptionally difficult to agree. Because in order to agree, agreement fundamentally comes from two people simultaneously experiencing the same experience, right? So that's where consensus comes from. People having to have the same experience. And it's becoming increasingly difficult for that as we start removing our social connections and replacing them with a device and substituting that for human interactions. The only result of that can come from an increasing difficulty in agreement, and that's where we're headed. What can we do? I don't know, man. There needs to be a more social space that's video, audio driven. We can't do a whole lot about it in the pandemic, right? Because we used to go to churches, we used to go to, I don't know, the bowling team, the schools, block parties, right? We used to have all these things going on, and now not so much. I mean, they were already kind of sort of going to the wayside before COVID, but now really, really bad. We're just really not doing that. But we've got to start talking face to face, either camera or from 6 feet. I don't know. Not a good idea right now during COVID. This is the other thing that worries me. How can we agree? How are we going to be able to come to agreement and consensus on something global like COVID when we're all isolated and locked up and can't speak to each other? That's a problem, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm not going to change the world anyways, but well, I don't know. The whole GameStop stock thing is kind of interesting to watch. That there's an underdog situation, so maybe there's more value to the individual MECI, but we're headed on a path that's not good. Now the whole GameStop thing got me distracted. It scratched the needle off my record. So what can we do? Well, in terms of Facebook and all of our electronic communications, right? I think what we need to start doing is recognizing that when somebody disagrees with you, do not interpret it as them saying you're wrong, even if they say that you're wrong, right? Because you're not. You know your own experiences. They're coming from different experiences, and they're typing with two thumbs. So anytime people type with two thumbs, they're going to try to write it as short as possible. So first things first, stop interpreting people's disagreements, even if they say you're wrong and all that stuff. If they're being combative, you just have to assume that they're not being combative. Read it different, right? We're so used to combat online. You got to change your way of thinking. Don't always just assume that they're being combative, even if clearly they are. Just don't internalize it as combat. And you say, well, you bring up an interesting point. And this is another good thing, right? So this is something that I've started doing, and it works absolutely well, right? So I'll say something, and somebody will post a reply disagreeing. And what I do, and this is a Dale Carnegie thing. If you're going to disagree with somebody, tell them you agree, and then explain your disagreement, right? So you just say, oh, no, I totally agree with you on that. There's a couple of other things, too. I got a couple of other thoughts, by the way. And then you just, talk. And the funny thing is, when somebody agrees with you, and it goes both ways. When somebody agrees with you, bam, that just takes the wind right out of the disagreement sails, is right. The brain can relax. Oh, okay, good, right? Because everybody wants their viewpoints to be validated and accepted, right? So when you're talking to somebody online, try this. It may even work with your narc, right? You say, I agree, and then you proceed to disagree. You just don't say you're disagreeing. You put it under the concept of, hey, yeah, I agree. These other things too, I think are important. And you just go right on. Yeah. So I think we can, if we all just start doing that, online will become a much nicer place, I think. Cool. All right. Well, I should probably go get on something else. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, or share. I'll see you on the next video.